Hi, this is Rebecca from ShowMeScrapping.com. A little over a year ago, I was struggling to find a way to organize my stamp sets. My collection had grown to the point that they were spread between several boxes. I tried several systems, but found myself constantly hunting for the set I was looking for. In addition, I noticed that I tended to use the same sets over and over because they were accessible. Other sets were out of sight and out of mind. If you have more than a couple dozen stamp sets, you probably identify with my dilemma. It occurred to me that a searchable database was the way to go, so I started looking at my options. I was hoping to find a system that I could access both on my computer as well as my phone. I found Evernote and started entering all of my stamp sets into a database. In this video, I will share with you how this system has completely changed how I organize my stamp sets. I will also show you some of the other advantages that I found along the way to using this system. Evernote is a powerful database system. There is an online version as well as apps for the PC, Mac, tablets, and phones. You can download these programs at www.evernote.com. The free account should be sufficient for this purpose. On my screen, you will see the PC version of Evernote. It may look a little different in the other versions, but the functionality will be similar. I have found that the online and the phone versions do have some limitations. The first thing we want to do is actually create our notebook that we are going to use to store our stamp sets in. Notebook is just another word for database. You can think of this as your filing cabinet. Within that notebook, we're going to have what Evernote calls notes. If our notebook is our filing cabinet, you can think of the notes as the files, or in our case, you can think of them as the individual stamp sets. To create our notebook, we go in the top left-hand corner to File and then New Notebook. And you have to click New Notebook once again. And now we will give it a name. Click OK. If we look over here on the left-hand side underneath Notebooks, we now see our notebook called Stamps. This is empty. We want to fill it with all of our stamp sets. And we do this one at a time. I just picked up one of my stamp sets that I have laying here, and it's called Wild Wonders. I'll put a picture of it on the screen. This stamp set, as you can see, has some animals on it. It is geared toward babies. It has some words that I'll definitely want to be able to search for. Across the top, there's this vine that you can use as a border, so I'll definitely want to include that in my tags as well. And then finally, if you look closely in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the word Art Booking, and that means that this is one of the stamp sets that coordinates with the Cricut cartridge called Art Booking. So that's another thing that I'll want to make note of because that might be important when I'm looking for this stamp set. To create the note for this stamp set, the first thing I'll do is click New Note. And you will see that this now added something underneath the word stamps in this middle column. This middle column is going to be a list of all of them. So right now we just have the one, and then since we do have it selected over here on the right, this whole area is going to include all of the information that we have tied to this stamp set. And the first thing that we'll want to do is put a title. The name of this stamp set is Wild Wonders. I like to start my title in my notes with the item number. And the reason I do that is because when I'm organizing my physical stamp sets, I put them in alphanumeric order based on the item number. And what that means is all of my A stamps are going to be together and they're going to be in order by the numbers, and then will come my B stamp set, C, D, E. If I am searching in my database and I come across this stamp set and I decide I want to use it, it's real easy for me to then go to my boxes and find the stamp set. In the body of the note, I like to put all of the words that appear on the stamp set. So you'll notice that it's a girl, it's a boy, and I'll just go ahead and continue typing all of these. The reason that I like to type all of the words that appear on the stamp set is that makes them searchable. And so now if I am looking for a card that says boy, girl, maybe even just the word wild or cute, I'm going to be able to type that into my search bar, and this stamp set will be included when it filters based on those words. Another thing you can do is add a link to this image, and you can do that by coming over, if you pull up the stamp set on Close to My Heart's site and you right click on it and do copy image URL, and then come over here and do paste. And that allows you to just click on that link and see the stamp set. The next thing that I like to do with each stamp set is to add some tags. And I tag everything I can possibly think of. First of all, we see some animals. There's a bird. That bird, if you get specific, to me it looks like a toucan. Some people might see it as a parrot. We have room to add as many tags as we want, and we just want to add any word that somebody might be searching on. So if I have a customer that says, I really want a stamp set that has a parrot, this stamp set wouldn't come to mind. When I think of this stamp set, even though I've used it many times, I think of giraffes and lions and monkeys. I think of babies, and I never would have thought of that if I didn't tag it. So I name things multiple times, as many ways as I can. We've got some other animals. Okay, I've named all of my animals as many ways as I can think of. I also like to just put the word animal as a search, because sometimes somebody wants an animal, but they don't really care what. They're just looking for a cute animal or one that will fit on a certain size. So the word animal is good. Across the top is this vine that makes a border, so I'll name it vine. I'll also put in the word border, because I might be making something and I need a border and I don't really know what one I want, but I would just want to look at all the different borders that I have to choose from. If I include border, this is going to pop up on that list. Also, that vine is made up of leaves. And I use the word leaf rather than leaves. I just made the decision as I was going through these just to stick with the singular in most cases, because if I make some of them singular and some of them plural, I'm going to miss part of them when I'm doing my search. I might not think to search on both the singular and the plural. The last thing I want to put in is that this is a stamp set that coordinates with the Art Booking Cricut cartridge. And I do two things. First of all, I just type the word Cricut, so that if I just want to see all of my Cricut stamp sets, that will pull those up. But then I also do Art Booking. If I'm looking specifically for an Art Booking stamp set, I can find it. And the final thing is probably the most obvious, but I almost missed it, and that is that this stamp set is really geared toward babies. And so I will also tag it as baby, even though there's no images of babies. Now when I type that, you'll notice that this stamp set had a lot of tags. So I've completely filled up this area where the tags go. So there's no longer a place over here that says click here to add more, but what there is these little arrows that when I click on those, I get a pop-up box where I can add more. So once we finish this stamp set, I would just pull up the next stamp that I have and just keep doing this until all of my stamp sets are entered. If you want to jump start on this process, I have a notebook that has all of the current Close to My Heart stamp sets already loaded. I've typed them all in. I've tagged them just like we talked about here. You can use the link on your screen for information about how to access that database. Now that I've shown you how to add stamp sets to your database, we are going to focus on what you can use this database for. So I have that same stamps database, but now I've added all of the stamp sets that are currently available. If you use the notebook from showmescrapping.com, it's going to include notes for every stamp set that is currently available. One thing that you may want to do is go through and add a tag for each of the stamp sets that you own. And I've done that with this copy. I've just added a tag with the word own to a handful of the stamp sets in the database. Once you have done that, you can go up to the top right-hand corner and type the word own into the search bar. One thing that you'll notice is that the word own shows up under tags, and in my database I have 4 stamp sets that are tagged as own. It also shows up as just a word. And so if I don't actually select the tag own, if I just type in own and hit enter, I'm going to get 6 stamp sets. 4 of those are ones that I have tagged as own. The other 2 are ones that the word own, let me find one, on it is a sentiment that has the word own in it. And so one thing to keep in mind, it's possible that some of those words that you have tagged will also show up on the stamp sets. Since the notebook from showmescrapping.com includes all of the current stamp sets, you can also use this to preview stamp sets before you buy them and find just the one that you want for your project. This is especially handy for those of us that are consultants. I don't know how many times someone has asked me, do you have any stamp sets that have, and then fill in the blank. They have something very specific in mind. Since not all of our stamp sets are in the current idea book, I'm not always fresh on what all is available. And that's the beauty of having this database, is I can just pull it up, and if I'm on the go, I can just pull it up on my phone. I can type in the words that they're looking for and immediately be able to give them advice about stamp sets that may be of interest to them. You may want to add your retired stamp sets, or maybe you have stamp sets from other manufacturers that would also be convenient to add in here. Do it exactly the way that we talked about at the beginning by clicking New Note and then giving it a title, adding information to the body, and then also adding the tags that would be helpful.